Okay, good morning. Hi, Elle. Welcome again.
Hello, my love. I hope you don't mind if I drink my coffee.
No, you go for it. Our listeners on the podcast can't see you, so you would have got away with that. But our live audience and our guests that watch this later will definitely see it. But an 8:30 session needs some coffee and some croissants, so do move away.
It is only the second coffee, so I think that's realistic, isn't it?
That's absolutely fine. So welcome to episode 2 of the Live and Learn series. I am so excited to have my friend and branding guru join me, Elle Moss from Drew London. Thank you.
That's a little bit.
Today we're actually going to be talking about multiple personality disorder, not ours, our brands, and looking at the brands going way beyond the logo, the design, the tone of voice, and thinking about what and how we come across as brands, as individuals, as brands, as corporates, as people. And I'm super excited to go through this with you because I love the work you do on brand archetypes, and I've witnessed this with so many of your clients and us as well. So it'll be great. Let's just kick off with what on earth is a brand archetype and how did this even begin?
Okay, well, I think it's actually the missing link in brand development, because it completely sets you apart from your competitors and speaks directly to your customers. So fundamentally, Carl Jung said years and years ago that we all are one of 12 archetypal personalities. And those personalities can be anything from, we've discussed them this morning, haven't we, Charlotte? But the lover to the rebel. I think we know who each of us are. And they are how our personalities react, how we talk to others, how we look, how we behave. And so to relate that to your brand character is super, super life-changing for a brand, actually. Because once you know what it is, it kind of floods through your strategy. So it floods through how your brand identity is played out typographically, color palette, imagery, illustration, but also how your social media, how you speak to people, how you speak to your customers. I know this is a podcast, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and demonstrate verbally what a brand is. Luckily, I was super lucky that I'm not going to tell you the year. A few years ago, I did my degree in visual communication. And so it wasn't strictly in graphic design, it wasn't strictly in brand strategy, and it wasn't strictly in advertising, but it encompassed all of those. So I was taught this way of looking at brands years and years ago. I won't say how many, because I'm obviously really young. So I've kind of, this webinar, I'd like to be quite interactive, and that includes you, Charlotte.
Yes.
Because with live consulting, you also have a brand archetype.
We do.
It's really important that we remember that we have not one, but two. So hence your multiple personality disorder. The reason you have two is one of your archetypes should be outwardly facing. So it should be talking to your customers directly. And hopefully your customers, will resonate with that archetype, which will mean they'll become loyal customers and buy again and again and again, because they'll understand that you offer them magic if you're the magician, so to speak. Then your secondary archetype is your inwardly facing. It's an internal archetype. And that's as important as the primary, but it looks at your suppliers, your employees, your welcome handbook, how you talk in your one-to-ones with your staff. So it's just as important as the external, but it's more for your own true self.
Would you say that they almost go down all the way to the values of the company as well? They should be connected, or would you naturally disconnect them?
No, I would say they absolutely are integral to the values. In fact, what I've discovered is when people struggle to find their values, maybe I've seen that more with products than services, actually, it helps guide you in those. It can help build them. So it can be, I'm going to say, it can be a real value to your values, your archetype. So you can tell it's early, can't you? Not even that early. Just a little bit of housekeeping. my dog likes to bark ferociously from about 8:30 till 9:15. So it's mostly the cleaner that comes around our office who is very patient with him, but can be a bit disturbed. So again, sorry podcast people, because you didn't know that this was 8:30 in the morning. Shall I get on with my slide sharing, Charlotte?
Let's put some visuals with it so we can understand. And then anyone that's on the podcast, we will upload some photos to go with it if we can, or just going to have to verbalize it really clearly.
My communications degree, I'll try and get
well,
that.
Anyone that is listening to the podcast is really interested. All of the videos are on our channel at liveconsultancy.co.uk, so you can physically watch if you want to see the visuals that go with it, which I'm sure you will, because they're very interesting. Right, let's take it away, Al.
Hang on, added to which, there's also a very handy downloadable PDF. I have it printed here. Feels like times pre-COVID, where you can basically, my clients kind of tick off which archetypes they feel they have relate to. Okay, here we go. I've not actually done a webinar where you share a screen, so yeah, be patient with me, basically, Charlotte, and
it looks great.
Slow down or speed up. Just let me know. So 12 archetypes, they all fall into 4 different categories. And we are going to show an example of the archetypal group which connects to others. So this is normally a product, in my experience. It's normally someone that's selling an actual, rather than a service, it's someone that's selling an actual physical product. And to demonstrate how an archetype works, I'm going to do that through the power of ice cream. Okay, so it would help if I could click through. Okay, so Haagen-Dazs, these are global brands that even someone listening to the podcast in Brazil should know about. Haagen-Dazs and Ben & Jerry's are, for all intents and purposes, the same price point. They're sold in the same supermarkets. They are the same box, the same piece of packaging that's just branded differently. And in a blind taste test, I'm not an ice cream expert, but I'm pretty sure you would know the difference, but you would probably be content with both of them. They'd probably fulfill you with both of them, right? Well, here's the thing. If you look at the marketing tone of voice and adverts and everything for Haagen-Dazs, it's very couples, it's very sensual, it's very like melting together and coming together, that type of thing. And it's, you know, it's quite sexy, right? Lose control there. And this is an old advert, but I think it's really cool. So their archetype, well, we'll come back to what it is. I'm going to make you guess in a minute. Whereas Ben & Jerry's, they have this kind of cartoonish handwriting. They're funny, like with this hand thing. So this is an advert. It says, we usually try and put a handful of walnuts in every tub, and there's a massive, massive hand for Big Jim. And it makes you laugh. It's very memorable. They also have, laughing cow, DJing cows in the background. So it's very family orientated. It's not, you wouldn't necessarily expect your child to pick up on an essential Haagen-Dazs advert, whereas they would pick up on this. And so their archetype is very much, okay, so have a guess. So they fall into the connect to others category, Charlotte. So it's either lover, jester, or citizen.
I would assume they are the jester.
Who?
The jester.
Are Haagen-Dazs.
Oh, no, Haagen-Dazs, the lover.
Lover, okay.
I thought you were talking about Ben & Jerry's.
So you can see that from that, they've literally, in a very competitive marketplace, they are true to their archetypal values, I suppose, and tone of voice. And it must help so much with all of their marketing. It really must. It must be the most incredible relief that they know that they've got their kind of, almost when people put values on the wall, which I know that we're not in our offices, so it's irrelevant. And I've never really agreed with that, just between you and me, because I think they should come from the heart rather than be written on a wall.
I agree. I think if you're forcing them, if you have to write them and remind someone every day, they should feel it.
They should feel it, right? And also, I'm not going to go into an example. You'll get me completely off track if we start talking about brand values on walls.
That's another episode.
Yeah, pen it down. But yeah, it must be really helpful. Like, you know, their social media team and their marketing team, their packaging team, their brands.
Well, there's something always to check it back to. Does this fit within our archetype? Does this fit within our personality? And as you say, something that is so similar that if you were, like what you said with a blind test, to pick them up, the packaging is very similar. Yeah. The same shape, the same style, probably even the same finishing. The tastes are probably also equally similar. So this is the only thing that, apart from flavors, that they have that is different.
Yeah, the only differentiator. I mean, they're pretty much the same price point. Which is your favorite flavor, and which do you prefer, Haagen-Dazs or Ben & Jerry's?
I really couldn't tell the difference. I'm not a massive ice cream fan, but there usually is always a chocolate element to it.
I love the fact that I've chosen ice cream as an example, and neither of us actually eat ice cream.
But it's a great example from a brand, a differentiator point of view, because that's a highly competitive market. And I think that's what people and brands really struggle with, that when they are incredibly competitive and so alike, how do you pull someone apart? And we have that quite a lot. Like at the moment, we have quite a few clients that are in like the coaching and therapeutic world, right. And there aren't many differentiators, and this is what really does start to pull them apart, their story and that personality and tone of voice. And it's often really hard to crack, so I think this is really helpful for brands to look at and think about where they sit, especially when picking which one are they externally and internally.
Exactly right. So I think, you know, you mentioned your wellbeing clients, you know, they often sit within the kind of provide structure side, so the creator, caregiver and sovereign. And I will come on to that. So I've basically taken all 12 archetypes, and for the power of podcast, I'm going to vocalize them. For the power of the webinar, people are going to have some visual cues. And I think as you go through, this is the other thing I say to, especially startups, when you start up a business, you're coming from a challenge that you've seen or you've witnessed or you've experienced. The most important part of the brand analysis that we do is looking directly at the characters of the founders. So we're working with multiple entrepreneurs at the moment, but looking at their kind of where their passion points are, like why have they set this business up? And we were talking about this idea for the webinar a while ago, and I have so many webinar ideas because I've seen clients, we've had clients for such a long time, that when they set their business up, they were their target customer. They were, so Emmy London, which is a luxury shoe and accessory brand. We were both in our kind of mid-20s. We were both getting married at the time. It was perfect. We were like literally the target market. Forward the clock 12 years, we're not getting married. We're not looking at being engaged even. So we don't understand what the bride is feeling now. So she's had to relook at her archetypes, her passion, her why, the golden circle. Oh, Charlotte, I could go on and on and on. But a lot of what COVID-19 has taught me is we have about 12 new clients who are startups. And when we look at their archetypes, it's really helped them focus on who they want to talk to and what they want to say, but it's been driven by them. So through the next 12 slides, where I'm going to be describing vocally and to the webinar visually the archetypal types, keep in mind which one, and if you're a startup, be subjective, make it about you. Which one you feel talks about you and your tone of voice. And I'm sorry if my network just went a bit iffy there. You wouldn't believe I'm in the office, would you? Does that make sense, Charlotte? Yeah,
no, it's absolutely great. And I think you just touched on something so important, is that I find brands struggle with this when they really don't know their why. And actually it's really difficult to, especially now, I think it's even more important to actually step back and really take the time to figure that out. Because beyond money, why do we do this? And if you can't answer that, I would recommend spending some time, in your spare time when it's quiet to really figure that out. Because if you don't know that, it's going to be very difficult to get to this point.
And I'll let you into a secret. My favorite thing about my job as a CEO and of my creative agency is discovering people's whys.
Mm.
It is just, it can revolutionize a business.
Yeah.
So
it's a really emotional, it's a real privilege to be able to help people do
oh my
that.
gosh,
But it's a very emotional journey. I mean, I'm sure you have as well. There's been many times when we figured that out and you end up, you're all in tears, and it's such a big moment. I think it's really important. I think also I learned a few years ago that you're not there if you're not emotional. I think I would just pass that on as a tip, that you will find it. You'll know when you got there, is it when you almost can't hold back the tears. It will be that deep inside you.
Oh, you're making me well up just thinking about it.
Early for this, isn't it?
Oh, darling.
All
So
right.
I'm going to start off with the lover. Okay. So does this relate to you? Acknowledge and indulge in others' desires. Cultivate attraction and offer experience that touches all of the senses. Around you, people feel lit up, turned on, and dialed in. And you help people with your brand or service, more than brand, connect to heart's passions. It's really powerful. It's all about passion, sensuality, sexuality, and spirituality. And brands that are the lover are Victoria's Secrets and Haagen-Dazs. Does that speak to you? It does on a personal level, right, Charles?
Yeah, it does. I mean, there's many bits of brands I'm working on. I think, yes, that is them. It's not my brand, but it's definitely brands I love.
And that's a very good point. I will be asking you which you think your brand is at the end, but we have got 12 to get through. So I hope that I'm not boring people on the podcast too much. So next up, we have a jester. This is fun. We already know it's Ben & Jerry's, right? And Skittles, like, what's the flavor of the rainbows or something? Help. Jesters help people have a great time. They release their stress and cares through fun, humor, and play. They're giddy, energetic, and they light up the world. They are all about experiencing fun. And the last one in this belonging section is citizen. So citizens are down to earth, accessible and friendly. You have solid values, responsible, and you're very authentic. You're relatable, included, inclusive, and safe from judgment, and you encourage communities. And I think IKEA, I mean, I can think of loads of citizens actually, but I think IKEA is very inclusive with its offer. They absolutely nail that. So the next three are, they leave a mark. So it's your favorite ones coming up, Charlotte. Hero. Improve the world, accomplished through your mastery. Tough mentally and physically, disciplined, decisive, and always prepared. People know that you're competent and brave, so will follow you into the fray. You're motivated, accountable, and you're up for a challenge. I love Hero.
Yeah, it's great. It's really lovely. And I think also there's like brands that stand out for me here, like the Creative Mentor Network we work with, and some of the charities are the really strong sort of social at heart companies that really do well in this area.
Yeah, and it's it just makes you feel like you want to get to know them, doesn't it? And I love the fires, Nike and FedEx, and there's a picture of a lion, and it's going, I breathe in my courage and exhale my fear. So yeah, I really love a Hero. So magician helps people dream. So let me start that again. A magician helps people's dreams become their reality. You fascinate people and you transform lives. You are articulate, expansive, and a sharer of your knowledge, and you are able to dream enormous dreams. You are awe-inspiring, intuitive, and you're really clever with huge charisma. We have a lot of magicians as clients at the moment. They don't even realize it, but they are making magic happen. We have a couple. We have this South Asian therapist, which is an online global portal for connecting South Asian therapists with South Asian people that need therapy. Would you believe it? This didn't actually really exist, or wasn't even a talked about subjects. And upon launch, something like 350 therapists worldwide signed up, and we now know that that platform, and that was about 3 months ago, that platform is absolutely smashing it. And what's brilliant about that is the magician side. So she is bringing magic to people's lives and helping others that need support during this really difficult time. So we have a lot of magician clients. And then a rebel. Okay, so I don't know who this speaks about. The rebel. We don't do things in the traditional way. You boldly question authority. You revolutionize, and you're unapologetic about it. People feel empowered to challenge the status quo. People feel liberated from convention and overturn what isn't working and find ways that do. They are all about leadership and risk-taking, progressive, provocative thought, bravery and personal power, sometimes brutal honesty, and a lot of experimentation to find the right way. Mm-hmm. So here we have Harley Davidson as an example of that, and MTV, which, you know, speaks to me because I'm an 80s child. So MTV came along when I was like, what is this? This is amazing. But the other rebels are Virgin, you know, Richard Branson taking people to the moon, closely followed by Elon Musk. So yeah, do they speak to you, Charlotte?
Yes, the rebel speaks to me. The rebel definitely speaks to me. But it is interesting because it's as you say, the founder will have one archetype, the business and the internal may have another, and then your client facing may also have a different one. So it'd be interesting. And as this goes along, I'm really interested to hear that participants, like, please can we just pop in the chat if one comes up and you think that's what you are, or if you have any confusion around it. It'd be great to see your thoughts around what you think you are, and then as you're reading them, if you think something else jumps out. This is a really interesting exercise to run for you as a person, and then also you as a brand, or your brand.
So we're now into the third sector, which is these three provide structure. Mm-hmm. So they're mainly service industries, of normally tech, fintech, or ed tech, or we're doing some farm tech at the moment, and they fall into this category. So first up, you've got the creator. Passionate and supportive about expressing and curating, ignite individuality with a strong vision. They offer support and realistic creative solutions, which is really important when it comes to Adobe Creative Suite. Mm-hmm. Always be looking for the next thing, which is really important when Adobe Creative Suite release multiple updates. They are all about creativity, imagination, non-linear thought, non-conformality, and developed aesthetic. They are a passionate need for self-expression. And that could not be more so with Lego.
Yes.
You know, really, it's just, it sets you up and you can follow the guidelines and make a spaceship, or you can make something that's completely out of your own imagination. Yeah.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because when we were talking about Lego, I actually thought about the jester with Lego as well as the creator, because in their outward facing language and how playful they are. And it's, you know, that brand is always about being playful and that inner child, and always having that even as an adult and that creativity. So I think for me, they did cross over the two, but I think that's why this is so interesting.
So there was a documentary about Lego quite recently, I think. I'll try and dig it out and we'll maybe put the link up. And the employees that they bring on, they are looking for the jester. A lot of their interview processes are about developing and playing, which is, I mean, it must be amazing to work there, I think. So the next one got quite a different feel here. I love the fact it goes from creator to caregiver, and a caregiver is all about nurturing and helping others. You are most fulfilled as a caregiver when you are helping others, and people feel supported and comfortable with their choices when they work with you. You're absolutely empathetic to people's journeys, and your unselfish concern and or devotion to nurture and care for others. Guess which I am.
You are the carer.
So, yeah, my agency and the Moss Foundation, which I'll come on to, but funnily enough, it's our internal facing one is our caregiver, because actually we want to make the world a better place. Mm-hmm. And a caregiver is more of a nurturing side. So I look for that in my staff and my suppliers. And then the last one of this third is a sovereign, which is high achieving, refined, and radiates excellence. People to you, no, that doesn't make sense. Leverage authority to maintain a prosperous community, inspired by results and hopeful that they can achieve similar things. Limitless and determined, open our minds to what's possible. It's all about rank and tradition, stability, nobility, and a model of proper behaviour. Gosh.
Yeah. The language on all of these is just gorgeous, isn't it? It just really, I think what's really interesting about this language is that it's so encouraging. It's like welcoming you in. It grabs part of you that thinks, oh, I've got a little bit of that, and I've got a little bit of that, and this is what I mean by multiple personality disorder. And there's a great question in the chat: can you be a mixture of two? And we were talking about this beforehand. But Elle, do you want to answer that one around how many can you be? Because I've got 3 or 4 noted down, and I know that I have to refine that and just go to like 2, maximum 3.
Okay, so we have an online questionnaire that we ask our clients to fill in, and we will normally get between 4 and 5 back, which are high scoring. High scoring, I mean, you know, you're looking at 4 out of 5, or it feels like a 4 out of 5. It's a case of then going back to what they actually mean and really looking for your 5, really looking for it. And I would always have 2. And like I say, 1 is kind of outwardly facing. So 1 is how you want to be portrayed to your customers and how you want people to see you. Don't change yourself. I mean, just because I'm a caregiver, I'm not going to suddenly go, okay, I'm a jester now. And then the internal facing, the one that you want your champions, your cheerleaders, your team members. You know, it's really interesting when you employ someone, you will know whether they resonate with the archetype that you've chosen for your internal one, because you'll get that longevity out of them, and that they'll really believe in what you're trying to achieve. You can have a 3rd. We have a client, a hospitality client, that has a 3rd. So they've chosen. Actually, I haven't read out the ones that they've chosen, so maybe we'll get through the final 3. And I'll tell you
which get through them. But to answer, we're looking at. So we're sort of looking for 2 or 3 usually. You might just have 1 that you're just this clear one, but yes, you can definitely be a mixture of 2.
Yes, you definitely can.
I'm interested to see what the audience is.
If my brother's listening, I would try to think what it is. Jay, let us know if you're there, and then I will take a wild punt at what Travis IT is. Put me on the spot, why don't you? So we're into the spiritual journey. Look, I'm going to read these 3 out, and literally the whole audience is going to resonate with these 3. I can absolutely guarantee it, and I'll tell you why when we finish. So first we have innocent. Okay. Innocent. It's funny that you've actually got innocent juice there. They've literally taken their name directly from the archetype name, which is quite an interesting thing, isn't it? And Dove is there as well. And I think that as a brand, I've really admired Dove, because they use real people for their advertisements. So innocent means optimism, to be happy with simplicity and ease, breath of fresh air, straight talking, trustworthy, and pure of heart. People find positive encouragement and confidence around you. Help get back to basics, living by essential values. There is an unbridled sense of wonder and purity with innocence, and there's freedom from preconceptions. Quite a big one, isn't it, innocent?
Yeah, it's huge. I think it's such good examples with Dove and innocent.
And the image on this slide, podcast listeners, is choose to see the good stuff, which I think is really nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. I think it's really interesting actually, because they're innocent, but you've got in innocent and in Dove, you've both also got a bit of the rebellion side, and you know that they've done things so differently, and they challenge the status quo. I mean, like innocent literally had their stall with the try me with the yes or no bin, should we give up our jobs?
Yeah.
And that's how they started the company, and then were sued so many times because they changed packaging, because they thought packaging should have more of a brand story than, you know, the stuff that we don't really look at. So they are that, but then for me they're also that that rebellion and heroes almost.
And then you look at where innocents sit on the shelf in the supermarket, and they hold that archetype to themselves. I think they're pretty untouchable on that. And there's even a drink, I think it's even called Rebel, which
that's right,
it's next to them. So they've probably, as an actual, the beauty of when you are a founder or you're the character of your brand is you can go with what you really, really believe in. But actually, if Rebel is probably born out of a marketeer going, we need to be separated from the competition. So we're going to force this archetype through our brands and marketing, which I think it works for them. I think they're doing well. So that's what I hear anyway. Charlotte, it feels like you've got this, by the way, as in you've got the archetypal characters and how they're portrayed through brands and marketing.
I'm getting it. And interestingly, James has just posted actually, and James has said that he feels that he is the hero, although it's not reflected in his brand. So we'll come back to that one.
I actually think Jay is coming up. Watch his space. Okay, so this one is called Sage, the wise owl. So Sage, understand the world and teach others what you know. Seek information and insights through research, analysis, and self-reflection. Diligent and thorough, people around you feel like completed things just seem to make sense. You're informed, validated, and confident in their new understanding. The Sage is motivated by independence, cognitive fulfillment, and truth. Morgan Stanley and Google are very sage. Sage, as in the software, is very sage.
Yeah.
And Jay, if you're listening, you're very sage.
Maybe you're sage with a touch of hero. He says, thank you.
Here's the thing, all right. Sage is definitely how he makes his client feel. Sorry, my brother is a data analysis, IT consultant. He solves problems, essentially. And he does it in a way that makes sense. Very trustworthy, very intuitive. Well, it's intuitive to him. To me, it makes no sense at all. But actually, his clients feel like they're in really safe hands. They're in a sage pair of hands. A wise owl has come along. I think your hero idea is probably something to do with your internal.
It's really funny actually, because we've also got computer care in the audience as well, and I'd say they're also a sage but also a carer.
Oh, that's nice.
And it's a really nice combination for their brand. I think that really comes across already in their tone of voice. So it's really interesting to see that. I don't know, Simon, if you agree, you're here, but that's how I see you.
I'll also let you into a secret though. Every single time we send this online questionnaire out to clients, Sage scores 4 or 5 out of 5. I think, and that doesn't surprise me. I think, you want to be trustworthy and truthful and share your knowledge, whether you're a luxury skincare company or whether you're a recruitment agency. So yeah, I'm going over time. I've just heard our air conditioning come on, so it must be 9:04.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Almost. Sorry, listeners. In fact, this is the last archetype. So this is the explorer. Novel adventures and fresh experience help people take the journeys that matter and make people feel curious, alive, and free to do new things. Authentic experiences and more fulfillment. They're all about independence, bravery, and they're motivated by a powerful craving for new experiences. So this is someone with wanderlust, right? This is someone, most of our hospitality brands have this as their primary archetype, which leads me back to the person that asked whether they can have 3 or more than one. So this is their primary archetype. Their team that look after their customers, so actually in the hotels or restaurants, are caregivers, and they are building an online platform for people to book concierge and stuff like that. So that's a creator. So they've got 3 going on. So they've got explorer, but their marketing mostly speaks about their exploration and their caregiving. So how do you use your archetype? All right. so I've launched a new thing called the Moss Foundation. Well, I launched it this year. The Moss Foundation is a legacy project, and it's a community of interest. It's a CIC, so it's not for profits. And any profit that we get will be going towards a charity in my local area called the Grove Adventure Playgrounds. So what it does is it helps people bring their ideas, their business ideas to life. So the South Asian therapist that I mentioned earlier, we helped her through the Moss Foundation, building her an online platform that we knew would help other people have a better life. So that's our why. We want people to have a better life, whether that's inclusivity, sustainable, bringing messaging to the forefront to help people. It's really important to me. It's the criteria to be a client of the Moss Foundation is that you have to be female-led, under 3-year-olds as a business, and self-funded, and you want to make the world a better place. That's a really important bit. So we're a sovereign as an archetype. That's our primary archetype, and with that we've done this kind of very relatable, gosh, it's red's making my skin tone very interesting podcast readers. It's like I've got sunburn. You've got a kind of humanist script font mixed with a really, really bold serif typeface, which feels very established, very confident, very like it's going to make the world a better place. And then our illustrative style and all of our marketing and brand identity, visual communications comes out as very hand-drawn, really authentic, really unique, because we want to help people take them on their journey. Really empathetic. I've built a business. I started it 15 years ago with no clients and about £2,000 in my pocket, which I gave straight away to all marketing, laptop, office space, all the stuff you need to set up a business. And it was the best thing I ever did. And I am absolutely here for people that have started businesses, and we are right by their side as a Moss Foundation. The caregiver comes from the fact that obviously I am a caregiver, but we have this advisory board of people that are there to support others. I look at them as being caregivers. I look at them as they are giving up their time, their knowledge, their experience to make someone have a better path in life, make some better choices about building a business. So that's how I've rolled out my archetypes. And I believe that's the end of my presentation, leaving you on a cliffhanger knife edge. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. But yeah, if you want to know more, I can share more. But for now, I'm hoping that was enough to give you a strong indication.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible. And obviously you can take your online tool is it on your website, your online tool? And you can download
I'll send you a link and you can put it in the webinar.
Perfect.
And a podcast.
There was actually a question from Jez around what does the scoring system mean, the 4 out of 5? Okay, so
we try to make it as easy as possible. So a low score, so 1 is you do not relate to it at all. It just doesn't do it for you. Whereas 5 is, oh my goodness, that literally is me, or that's who I want to be, or it's what my product is, or how I want my staff to behave, or how I want a piece of marketing to sound.
Awesome, brilliant. And I think also it'd be great just to see from the audience as well, if there's any archetypes that really stand out for you as people or as you as brands. So that'd be really interesting. I think for me, we sort of sit within we are the magicians externally, and we're also the rebel internally, in that challenging that status quo and always trying to, but there's an element and touch of the jester in our marketing and our tone of voice. So I think they're the kind of 3 that
there's another one I thought of for you though, Charlotte, is I think you're a bit of a sovereign.
Maybe.
Just to reflect upon that a bit, you're high achieving and you're refined and you radiate excellence. I don't see anything that you deliver being subpar. I think it always has to be extraordinarily good. Now, whether that's an internal archetype, I don't know.
This is what I mean by multiple personality disorders. It's just they all appeal to me.
What did Jay say? What did my brother say? Do you agree with Sage?
He said, "Thank you very much," and he said, "Let me just have a read from this." Yes, he said, perhaps that's more my brand.
Well, that's good. And I agree. But yeah, but there are things like, Rebel, I'm reading a book called, what's it called? Be More Pirates by Sam.
Yes, love that book.
Barker. And they fit right into the rebel archetype, but actually in this, I think chapter 3, they're like, we are not the rebel archetype. I think they kind of are. And I think that I need to be more rebel in my life, but I'm working on it. Maybe you can help me.
I think that's what's quite nice, that you have these scores where you'll relate to certain archetypes, but there's an element you think, actually, that would be really good for us. We need to just introduce a little bit of it. So even though the exercise is great to find what you are and to make sure that's coming across in your values, your why, your handbooks, your recruitment process, everything in your brand.
Job post.
Yeah. To attract the right people and to also attract the right clients. But it's also really interesting to be, actually, we could make some improvements in what we're doing by learning from others as well. Emily, do you ever have situations where brands think they are one archetype, but really they are the opposite? Absolutely. I have seen this so many times. But I suppose the after would be, and I'm assuming, Emily, the question is sort of how to deal with that and what to do with it, because that's really difficult as a creative as well, when you're having to advise against that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's the same with brand values, isn't it? Where you, if you sit quite closely with your client and they're kind of going, we want to be this, and you're like, definitely isn't you. The ways that I have handled that in the past is putting their competitors into archetypal categories and actually kind of saying, if you are Sage, then you're sitting literally next to your competitor, so there's no differentiator. So maybe we should look more about you being more of a citizen with what you're saying. That often works. But yeah, people, it is a challenge, Emily. But it's one that you can overcome by looking at their competitors normally.
I think also alongside that, what also generally helps is looking at their why. And more often than not, their why isn't true to that it's not really truthful. And there's usually a bit of an internal battle going on of what we think we should be rather than what we are. And a lot of the time, not all the time, but especially when it's a founder-led or owner-manager kind of led business, there's a bit of a transition and a journey they have to go through to really understand where that why was, or what they're becoming. It's like what you're saying about clients that you've worked with out, and it started as they were the audience, and then they've grown and changed, and they have to reevaluate it. So those exercises.
I see that at the 5-year mark for a business. It's time that you start asking your customers and I know that you've got lots of webinars about this. It's time that you start asking your customers actually what do they want and who they are. You aren't a customer anymore. It's like a coming of age. It's quite it's not a difficult transition, but you suddenly have to spend a lot more time looking at your analytics, looking at who buys your products and why. But yeah, maybe we should have another webinar about the golden circle, which is the why.
I think we should, and
that really helps
live
build
examples.
your marketing strategy. So
yeah, no, brilliant. All right, thank you everyone that has joined us live, everyone that is listening and taking their time to come back and check out the videos. Do get in touch with us if there's any other questions, and all of this will be recorded and put on the Lively podcast, which you can get on whichever podcast app you prefer, or all videos and transcripts of our webinars are all on liveconsultancy.co.uk.
I've subscribed to your podcast now, so I get alerts and there's a new one. It's going to be...
Thank you.
Yeah. Loyal fan.
Thank you very much. And Elle, thank you so much for the preparation and the time and all of the questions. It's been really eye-opening, and every time I do this, it always makes me question my archetypes and what we're doing, even with our own communication. So it's been great. Thank you so much. Thanks for everyone that's taken their morning. I know we've run over a little bit, but I think it was worth the extra 15 minutes. It definitely was for me.
Sorry, everyone. I said to Charlotte just before we started, I don't think we'll get past 15 minutes.
Always the way. Always the way. All right, everyone, have a great day, and we will see you soon for episode 3. Bye.